Hello and welcome to Gravely Amusing, the only horror and sci-fi history podcast that doesn't want to wake up in the morning feeling like P. Diddy. Not anymore. I am Brian Peters.
I am Steve Cope.
And I'm Jerae Finch.
And
And
we're
we're
Wild
Stallions.
We almost had it. We almost
Yeah, we almost did it.
Wild Stallions. On today's episode, we're ending our Godzilla and Kong saga with a breakdown of the modern day Monsterverse. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I don't like the name Monsterverse for the Godzilla universe.
No.
I think that should have been the name for Universal's classic monsters.
Yes. Yep.
When they were trying to do the Mummy and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
it makes more sense,
right?
For them,
it should be Kaiju. Kaiju,
yeah,
Kaijuverse or something, or Kingverse, or
I mean, they use kaiju in the first Godzilla. I don't know about the movie, but I know the book they use that term in there,
or Titanverse.
There you go, because they do refer to them all as Titans.
They're all Titans. Well, not at first, but eventually they call them Titans. But that's what we're talking about tonight. So, boys, we started this season of Gravely Amusing with how Godzilla came to be. We taught on how King Kong came to be. Now we need to know how Jerae came to know King Kong and Godzilla. Yes. So Finch, tell us how you came to lose your Godzilla and King Kong virginity in a segment we call "Losing Your Virginity."
Hey, well, once again, it's all thanks to my pops, Big Papa Finch. The one I remember, the Godzilla film I remember seeing first, and I remember looking at the VHS is Godzilla versus the Sea Monster. I don't know if
Godzilla versus
that's the he basically fights like a giant crab monster. That's the one I remember. I think it has a different name, but if you look it up, it's Godzilla versus the Sea Monster is a name of it. And I don't remember much about it right now, but I remember that's the first one I ever saw. It was in color, so I remember that. But that's my first Godzilla movie. And then obviously I've seen most of them since then. And King Kong, I remember watching a black and white King Kong, and I remember the chick chained up and his giant hand or finger coming. So, that's I don't know if that's the original, if that was a remake. I just, I've seen these movies. I'm 37. I've seen them when I was younger. So, but once again, it was all thanks to my dad, just watching all that old glorious stuff.
Papa Finch, thank you. Thank you. We appreciate you, Papa Finch. So, Finch, do you remember at the Carnegie Science Center, seeing the special effects video for Star Wars and King Kong?
I don't think that one was showing when I went. I remember the one time I went when I was younger, and then I went as an older person. But the first time I went when I was younger, it was like a planetary thing. We were just watching stuff about the planets. So, but I remember in your podcast, going to the science center and stuff and talking about it, because you probably went in elementary school, right?
Sure did, bro.
Yeah. See, I went to Hutchinson. You went to what? Metzger or
Metzger?
Where'd you go?
Imitation of Nicely Elementary.
Oh, sorry, Nicely. Sorry.
Absolute cheap imitation. It's a carbon copy of the same building, same outside, same inside. Cheap imitation. It's like a freaking Ben Riley clone of Nicely. That's what it is.
Sorry.
Even though I like Ben Riley, but cheap. It's the Kane clone, a Spider-Man Kane clone. Cheap imitation. Get out of here. It's okay. Nicely is like the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man. Okay, that's Nicely. And then Metzger is like the Sonyverse without Spider-Man. Like that's what it's like. Like it's trying to be something, but it doesn't know what it is. And then
I can see that.
Hutchinson's
Hutchinson
is
is
like
Spider
Andrew
Verse.
Garfield.
No,
Spider-Man.
Hutchinson was across the Spider Verse, baby.
And then with Steve, where do you
I
go,
went out.
Steve? Mount
I went to
Pleasant.
school out in the boonies. Yeah, Norvell and Mount Pleasant.
Oh man. Oh, this is for all our small PA town folks listening.
You
Shout
guys
out
went
Green
to
Griffin.
high school together?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you both knew my ex-wife then? Maybe.
Oh,
Maybe.
oh.
We'll talk about that later.
Well, I knew her as a bitch.
Yes.
Finch might have know her as his personal bitch. I don't know. You know, Finch was all about the ladies. I don't know.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah, right.
That's funny.
Finch. Yeah, Finch has class. Finch wouldn't have touched that chick.
I'm
No.
kind of regretting it myself.
Well, like I said to you before,
Uh,
you fool me once, shame
mhm,
on me. Fool me twice. Shame on the condom breaking. You know,
mhm,
Can't get fooled again, you know.
mhm.
but you learned your lesson now,
Yes, I
right?
definitely learned.
I mean,
Yeah.
obviously,
Yes.
it's been 18 years.
Yes.
So poor guy, poor guy.
Monsterverse.
What are we talking about? We're talking. Oh yeah,
Monsterverse.
Yeah,
monsters, your
monsters.
ex-wife.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's right.
kind of
Okay,
fits.
it totally fits. If she listens to this podcast, I don't care what I said.
Me neither.
Oh my gosh. Okay,
No comment. So
no comment. No comment. So we talked about how Finch lost his virginity for his Godzilla and King Kong virginity. We talked about how Steve lost his virginity, personally and whatever. But anyway, previously on Gravely Amusing. That's what the show's about. Laughs. That's what the show's about. Previously on Gravely Amusing, Cyclops found out that Jean Grey is not.
that's another podcast.
That's another podcast. All right. So previously on Gravely Amusing, I explained how King Kong and Godzilla first came together on the big screen in the 60s. Flew solo on that one because it's hard to find those movies to be able to stream or get. So told you how that happened. So let's teach everyone here how this Monsterverse came to be and try to break down the whole story timeline as best we can. So what we did is we took all the movies and TV shows and trying to put it into one timeline of how things come in order. Because especially with the show Monarch, it gets extremely convoluted and sometimes they show you a scene from the past and then you totally forget that okay, so that's what happened because they didn't put it in the right order. So it gets confusing. If you enjoy this timeline, if you enjoy our jokes, don't forget to follow, subscribe, and tell your friends about Gravely Amusing. So let's turn that volume up. Send the kids to bed or put them to sleep by trying to teach them politics, whatever it takes to get the kids to go to bed. It's time to enter the world of monsters. So, Steve, how did this Monsterverse come to be? How did Legendary get to make this?
Well, guys, it started in 1998 with TriStar releasing their Hollywood reboot of Godzilla. But for some strange reason, plans for a trilogy were canceled.
I don't understand to this day why there wasn't a sequel to the 1998 Godzilla. Like
Now,
they had Matthew Broderick, and Emmerich directed it. Like this movie was a masterpiece.
They had a killer
yeah.
soundtrack with P. Diddy on it.
Yeah. See, it all
That's-
comes back to P. Diddy.
uh,
Uh,
but,
so anyway, yeah, they make a sequel.
didn't they set it up though to have a sequel?
Oh yeah, sure.
It had an animated series after.
Yeah, I remember that one.
with that 90s animation, similar to like Men in Black, Extreme Ghostbusters, Jackie Chan Adventures. They all look the same, kind of.
Kind of like animation now. It's all coming out of that studio in South Korea that's did the animation for Invincible. No, I'm so sorry. X-Men 97 animation is doing that. The He-Man reboot, Revelation, which I totally forgot that they made a sequel to that. Resolution, I don't know, but I'm behind on He-Man.
Haven't
But
watched it.
yeah, same studio. Well, we'll have to watch that. So yeah, but that 90s Godzilla show, I thought it was pretty dope. I liked it. The movie was horrible, but that show
No,
was
yeah,
good.
definitely.
Hey, I got nostalgia eyes for that movie, though. I know it's bad, but I enjoy it. I'll still watch it every once in a while.
I don't even remember the last time I saw that movie.
I all I remember of it is like I remember the kind of like the beginning, them building up to Godzilla coming in New York Harbor and stuff, and then I of course remember the music video. Like I couldn't forget the music video. A P Diddy standing on that truck, and he's like, "Come to me," and he's like, "Hear my thing, hear my thought."
Da-na-na, da-na-na,
And then he used
da-na-na.
cashmere
Right?
from his
All white.
yeah. Come with me, and then the music video ends with him and Godzilla face to face.
Yeah.
Dope. Um, yeah. Rest in peace, Biggie Smalls.
Mm.
So yeah, the TriStar, they have
Uh,
the rights, and
yeah,
back to Godzilla. My
as a
fault.
result, TriStar let the remake sequel rights expire on May 20th of 2003. But in 2004, Toho Co. Ltd. released Godzilla Final Wars to celebrate the franchise's 50th anniversary and to put the franchise on the shelf for a bit. Godzilla at this time wasn't doing so well as a franchise because of low ticket sales and the audience just got burnt out. So they decided to let Godzilla rest until demand increased for another film. So in August of 2004, Yoshimitsu Banno, who
You
directed
did
the
that
night,
really good.
I practiced before I came this time.
Look at you, buddy.
Who had directed the 1971 Godzilla vs. Hedorah, announced that he had secured the rights from Toho to make a Godzilla IMAX 3D short of his own. The film was temporarily titled Godzilla 3D to the Max and was to be a remake of the Godzilla vs. Hedorah story. Through the next few years, getting a team together and financing that team was a hassle. So in 2009, the team met with Legendary Pictures to get their backing on a 3D theatrical film. In 2010, it was greenlit by Legendary to go into production from Godzilla 3D production team Banno and Okihira, who would remain on the project as executive producers, and Rogers as a producer. The movie never happened. Now, Legendary had the rights to Godzilla, and on March 29th, 2010, Legendary officially announced its acquisition of the Godzilla license and plans to produce a new film with Warner Brothers. They will be co-producing and co-financing. Legendary claimed Godzilla would be closer to the original Toho version and avoid connections with the 1998 film, which was a shame. Producer and then CEO of Legendary,
You sure
Thomas.
about that?
What?
You sure it was a shame?
Yes, it was a
Should have been
shame.
a sequel to 1998.
Yeah.
P Diddy would have came back out riding Godzilla
Did
through
a
town.
sequel song, yeah.
Right.
Riding through New York.
Absolutely. Like riding Godzilla, kind of like a recent movie we might have saw
Yeah,
someone riding
yeah.
something else.
Uh-huh.
Maybe an axe in his hand. Maybe Matthew Broderick's back there.
Hank Azaria with the camera.
I forgot he was in that movie.
In
Oh my
a
god.
couple years when we talk about that movie officially, when I get to the 90s, yeah, it's that movie's pretty much the Simpsons cast doing Godzilla.
Mm,
uh, so anywho, so
All right. So, producer and then CEO of Legend, Thomas Tull, elaborated on Legendary's plans. Our plans are to produce the Godzilla that we, as fans, will want to see. We intended to do intend to do justice to those essential elements that have allowed this character to remain as a pop cultural relevant for as long as it has. Film producers Dan Lee, Roy Lee, Doug Davison, and Legendary's Thomas Tull and John Jasny were added to the project as producers to work with Rogers, Bano, and Okihura. Legendary financed 75% of the film's budget, while Warner Brothers financed 25%. At the 3D Summit conference held in September of 2010 at Universal Studios, producer Bryan Rogers confirmed a targeted release date for 2012. The reboot will be a live action project featuring a fully computer generated Godzilla battling two other monsters rather than simply the military, as seen in the masterpiece 1998.
masterpiece.
Oh, God. Rogers also confirmed that he would reboot Godzilla in the same way that Nolan rebooted Batman. In October of 2010, Latino Review reported that Legendary had merged a script for Pacific Rim with their Godzilla reboot and offered Guillermo del Toro to direct it. However,
That would that would
hmm?
have been awesome.
Yeah, Del
Yeah,
Toro.
That would have
hell
been
yeah.
awesome.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. However, Del Toro clarified to Hitflix that the report was false, stating, I am not involved in the Godzilla at all. I haven't read it or plan to read it, nor have I been approached to direct it. The rumor is still alive today that these franchises will merge one day, which I do hear a lot.
I've
And I agree
we've
would be
heard it.
so good.
We've heard it since this very day. Like
Yeah.
we've been hearing it since 2010 or so that it was going to merge one day,
Yeah.
and like for me personally, with the way that like things are kind of ended, which we'll get to.
Yeah.
Um, I think that would be a good next step.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've also been thinking in my head, like what if we bring Ultraman into this?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because so fans that might not know, I don't know a whole crap load about it, but I remember seeing the kind of 90s updated version of the show. But basically, Ultraman is a Japanese icon, just like Godzilla, where this guy basically has alien technology, gives him a suit, he gets really big, and he fights alien creatures, and in a like a mecha suit, like Power Rangers.
I watched it is a Godzilla animated one on Netflix. I did watch. I don't know if it was Ultraman, but it was like that robot and it like the kid built it or whatever. I don't know if you've seen that one or not.
It might be that might be Ultraman, and that's probably why it's
Yeah.
fresh in my head.
It looked like Ultraman, the face and stuff. So
I say, do it, bring it in.
Yeah, that'd be their way to kind of bring in that Pacific Rim type, you know.
I'm for Pacific Rim.
I
Would
mean, do we think though that Gypsy Danger or any other, giant mech can take Godzilla? Like especially this Monsterverse Godzilla with the arms and his
I
like
don't
special
know.
move.
I don't know. I think he would mess them up.
uh is a fight that I would like to see.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
That's all we can hope for.
That's
Yeah.
all good.
Mhm.
Like I think that's the next step. I really do. I think it can be incorporated, which will uh yeah, we'll mention in a second.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I don't think that Godzilla movie came out in 2012, Steve. What is that right?
Oh, of course, Legendary would go on to produce. Oh,
Yeah,
the Godzilla film remained in development well into 2012, missing the planned release date. Most of this problem was due to the
I knew it.
scripts being written and rewritten and writers changing. They finally stuck with a script that had more of a Jaws feel. filmmakers were very serious about getting Godzilla's final design perfect. Producer Thomas Tull was adamant about keeping Godzilla's design consistent with the original Toho version, stating, "We had to make triply sure we got it right. Godzilla had to look like Godzilla, period." Tull was also baffled by the design of the 1998 Godzilla, stating, "I'm always puzzled as a fan when you take these things so far, it's unrecognizable."
Kill no
They
nothing.
made it a giant T-Rex.
Made it better. It was better.
I had the action figures. It was pretty cool looking.
Yeah.
Nah.
Um,
This new Godzilla is like Killer Croc on steroids. Okay. 98 Godzilla. That was the shiznit. PJ said
g-
so.
yeah. This Godzilla was also the largest Godzilla ever in a film at 350 feet tall, which later Toho would make a Godzilla reboot of their own and make him 400 feet. The first film would make 529 million on a 160 million budget. What do you guys think of this Godzilla design?
Um, I like it. Like, I I was really concerned. I thought, see, I didn't see what Godzilla would look like fully until the movie, because there were magazines that came out, I think Entertainment Weekly, probably Variety, that were showing what he fully looked like. But I didn't want to know. I try to keep as many surprises as I can to myself. So seeing the movie in theaters, that first shot you see of him in San Francisco, shout out to Finch, who lives near San Francisco, somewhat near San Francisco. But but seeing him the first time, I thought he looked pretty dope. The scene with all the flares coming down and stuff, and you kind of get that first shot. I thought he looked pretty darn good, but I will say that the movie was pretty dark at times.
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
definitely.
and you couldn't
And
really kind of see everything. So,
I like how they brought him into that movie. Kind of like the first one. You don't really see him until the
like Jaws,
main. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say like Jaws. Like he was. Yeah, I just remember seeing like pictures of his feet and
Mm-hmm.
stuff, and I was like, dude, where's Godzilla at? You know. So, but I think his appearance has changed slightly, but it's gotten better, and he looked huge in that first one. So
Mm-hmm.
I feel like scaling has kind of shifted in the other films, but
I think you're totally right.
maybe, but
Mm-hmm.
maybe not.
He was very beefy in the first one. And then as it goes on, he must be from working out, getting those getting that six pack in there.
It's from all that ass whooping he's doing.
Uh-huh. What do you guys think of?
Stone Cold Stunner on the moto.
We'll get there. I in the new movie I noticed some things. But what do you guys think of the King Kong design?
I think s- no offense to Peter Jackson's Godzilla, which is really really
You mean
good.
King
Me, King Kong.
Yeah, or I always I noticed when I was editing the, the last podcast that I said King Kong when I met Godzilla sometimes, and then I just never went and fixed it because I figured someone's going to comment and say like, who's this guy? He don't know what he's doing.
Kong?
Um,
Well, I noticed in your Frozen Empire, or you kept calling it Frozen Kingdom. So,
I did.
Yeah.
I suck. I know. I'm a loser.
Same thing. Kingdom
Who would want to
Empire.
listen to a podcast that can't say words right? Ugh. But King Kong, Peter Jackson's King Kong, Peter Jackson, who directed the Harry Potter movies. So, uh, no one's gonna catch me on that. No, come on, guys. All right, Lord of the Rings movies. So Peter
there you go.
Jackson's
Thank
Kong,
you.
it looked amazing, but Kong, but that's not Kong to me because Kong stands upright. Kong has more of a human side to him, and I think especially in Kong Skull Island, I think Kong look fantastic. I like the scars on his body, the battle scars. Like this dude's been through crap. He is one tough mofo. I think he looks great, and I think Godzilla looks great, even with his upgrades. I think that -1 definitely took aspects of Legendary's Godzilla to kind of shape certain things, and then they added classic look of Gojira and mixed it together. And -1's still like the greatest movie for Godzilla, which I can't wait till it comes out so that we can talk about it because then our listeners can know what heck we're talking about. But I I think -1 Godzilla looks better, but I'm cool with this Godzilla. I think it looks pretty good.
Uh, I like this King Kong's look better than the Percy Jack or not Peter Jackson one.
Yes, Peter Jackson. There we go.
Because one, the size, like Peter Jackson's Godzilla or King Kong. See, you got me doing it, dude. Peter Jackson's King Kong was what 25 feet. He was nothing, man. And yeah, he was more gorilla like.
Yeah,
And
like a silverback gorilla type King Kong. Yeah.
yeah, and this King Kong, uh, he's huge, and even in Skull Island, he's just like he's not fully. I remember thinking to myself, I was like, how are they gonna fight if King Godzilla was this big and King Kong was only like this big? Like, and then they answered the questions and stuff. So
I agree with everything you guys said about the King Kong and Godzilla design. -1 was definitely my favorite design. And then, like I said, with King Kong, he looked more like silverback gorilla. Godzilla and Kong were destined to be bros once again. Because the plan was from the very beginning to have Godzilla vs. Kong, and they already had Kong rights thanks to Peter Jackson's film in 2005. And now it was time to build a Monsterverse.
It was time to build a Monsterverse. The Monsterverse timeline. Here we are, boys. The main event. So most of the chronological order of this is pretty straightforward. But while I was watching Monarch, I don't know about you guys, but I totally forgot that the character Bill Randa was in Kong Skull Island. Was played by John Goodman. Like Monarch starts with John Goodman, but like my brain totally farted when we see the younger version of the Bill Randa character. And then like it's like I made no connection. Like I heard Randa, but I still was not like, oh, this is younger John Goodman character.
yeah, it's
I don't know.
Anders. It was Anders from Workaholics.
Yep.
I was like, wait. It took me a minute to realize he was, because I don't pay attention to names in these things. I'm just like, oh, okay.
See, that's why I need you guys because being the deaf guy, like I can't catch like scores. Um, I can't catch that. Sometimes I'll miss a name. So like sometimes my memory just sucks. So that's why I appreciate you boys. So listeners, the so this would be the recommended viewing order. This is the Gravely Musing team. This is the way you should watch things. That so things aren't kind of confusing. So that order is start with Kong Skull Island. Then it just so happens there is a Skull Island cartoon on Netflix. It's not bad. It's not that bad, but it doesn't really help the overall story. But then there's Godzilla 2014, which kind of started it all. But Kong Skull Island happens before Godzilla. So then we have Monarch Legacy of Monsters. Monarch Legacy of Monsters is a mess in terms of time. It jumps all the way to the 1950s. Then it goes back to 2015. It is a mess, which is probably the reason why we're making this timeline for you guys to try to follow how things happen. So yeah. So after Monarch, watch Godzilla King of Monsters, and this is where the timeline just gets so much easier because it's just right after the other. It just comes out in order. Then there's Godzilla versus Kong. Then there's Godzilla X Kong. The X is supposed to be silent, but in this movie, I guess Legendary was like, X gonna give it to you. Whatever. The New Kingdom. Godzilla X Kong, The New Kingdom. So,
New Empire.
oh,
Go again.
I'm so sorry. I did that on purpose. I did that one.
Okay.
Godzilla versus Kong, the Frozen Empire. So,
Mm.
so we're gonna give you these events in chronological order, guys. All right. So, as we mentioned just a second ago, Monarch Legacy of Monsters has two different timelines. So, starting with the 1950s timeline, and we're going to try to help you make sense of the show because it's very convoluted and it is kind of a mess. So, um, I think the 1950s timeline is the best part of the show.
Yeah, I agree.
Like, do you guys think so?
Yeah, I definitely agree.
Well, Steve agrees with me. That's what matters.
I think it answers a lot of questions, but it also generates more questions.
Oh yeah,
So
Yeah.
definitely.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Finch, will you take the lead on this, and we'll jump in when to discuss certain points,
yeah,
if
sure.
you don't mind.
All right. So the story starts with World War II and a scene in Kong Skull Island. In 1944, two World War II fighter pilots, American pilot Hank Marlowe and Japanese pilot Gunpei Ikari, parachute onto the island in the South Pacific after a dogfight and engage in close combat until the fight is interrupted by a giant ape. So this is not from Monarch. That's from the beginning of Kong Skull Island.
Yes. Yes, sir.
Uh,
Thank you for that.
but now on.
I wish we would got more scenes of the Japanese guy of Gunpei and Hank in Kong Skull Island. I wish we would have got a little bit more because it felt like that was a story that would even help the movie even more because when Hank's talking about Gunpei, he's like, we became friends. I kind of would have liked some scenes. Like, you guys ever see the movie Enemy Mine?
No.
Can't say that I have. I don't know.
Oh,
Maybe.
boys. Okay. My wife came to me the other day and she's like, I want to watch this movie called Enemy Mine. And my eyes lit up really, really, really big. And we still haven't watched it yet, but oh yeah. But okay. Enemy Mine is a movie made in the 80s and it has Dennis Quaid in it and it has Louis Gossett Jr. Louis Gossett Jr. this alien that they're basically feuding with humans.
I
And
definitely saw this movie.
yes,
I just didn't know the
come
name of
on, you're
it.
my cousin. I knew we had to see this movie together.
I looked it up.
But
I'm like, holy crap, I've seen that.
this movie is one of my favorites as a kid because they're feuding and they crash on a planet together and they basically have to learn to get along to survive.
Mm.
And I would have liked them working together. I won't spoil anything for you. I'll say no more because it really is good. It's a great movie. But I would have liked a little bit more of the soldiers working together and seeing some of that because we just kind of just get just little memories. But anyway, on to Monarch. My apologies.
No worries. Monarch starts in 1952. Lieutenant Shaw is assigned to Kyoko's escort on an expedition following unusual radiation in the Philippines. They meet Bill Randa in the jungle, who claims to be followed a folk tales of a fire-breathing dragon. Kiko recruits Bill against the skeptical Shaw's advice, and Shaw departs. Are we? Did we mention how Monarch starts? Oh yeah, you mentioned it earlier with Bill Randa at the beginning.
Well, so this is really the start of it right here. So Lieutenant Shaw works for the Army. He's
Mhm.
played by Kurt Russell's
Wyatt
son,
Wyatt
Wyatt
Russell.
Wyatt Russell, Finch, my man. And basically he's been appointed to assist this Japanese doctor who we thought was initially a man, turns out to
Mhm.
be a female, and they're basically trying to find out what all this radiation is in the Philippines because this is Cold War times. So they get into the jungle in the Philippines and they meet this dude named Bill Randa, who claims to
Yeah.
be following folk tales. He wants to know about dragons. He's a cryptozoologist. Okay, and remember, guys, this is John Goodman's character in Skull Island as younger man.
Younger version,
You got to
which is
drill that in your
funny.
head.
Which is funny though, because if you think about Skull Island, it's only about what 20? Is it only like 10 years after a couple scenes in Monarch, and
Yeah, like,
he goes from being Anders to John Goodman in 10
exactly.
years. But continuity, whatever.
We got you.
So,
Yeah,
all
I'm
right.
with. That's why I was like, oh, it's the same guy. Yeah,
Yeah.
like
Well, I mean, that's the same thing everybody says about X-Men. Like, he goes from being Michael Fassbender to being Magneto, Ian McKellen.
a rough
So,
20
like,
years, boy.
yeah. All right. Sorry, Monarch. Continuing along, Kieko and Bill discover the wreckage of the USS Lawton, a Navy ship that sank in 1943, from which Bill was the sole survivor. So the ship was attacked. Okay. They discovered corpses in the ship
No,
and
no, go ahead and
attacked.
say it. Go ahead and say it.
The ship was attacked by an ion dragon.
Yep,
And
sure was.
but they said, the military was like, oh, it was attacked they hit something or whatever. They discover corpses in the ship that are attacked by an ion dragon. Having seen the ion dragon radiation based fire, Shaw returns to rescue them from the ship because he sees this like radiation in the sky. In 1954, Shaw has joined Monarch in a command position. He, Bill, and Kieko present a cast of Godzilla's footprint to Shaw's superior officer, General Puckett, to secure uranium for luring Godzilla out of hiding. In Bikini Atoll, Bill and Kieko are horrified to discover that Puckett had delivered them the uranium in a nuclear bomb to kill Godzilla as part of the Castle Bravo test. As Godzilla surfaces, because he's attracted to the radiation of the uranium, Kieko attempts to halt the detonation, but Shaw restrains her and the bomb is detonated. In the aftermath, Shaw is given a blank check by Puckett for Monarch to research the Titans. In 1950,
So what's important here too is this show, like Bikini Atoll and Castle Bravo, those are actual events in history of nuclear tests. So this show is pulling, just like X-Men First Class did. It all comes back to X-Men. Oh yeah. Okay. But just like X-Men First Class used the Bay of Pigs
Cuban
Cuban
Missile
Missile Crisis,
Yeah.
this is using actual locations and events to pull it together. So yes, so Monarch has begun,
and
and we see a cool scene of Godzilla. That they
Godzilla
hit him with
comes. He's
nuclear weapon.
He's a lot smaller. Remember, he was smaller because he hadn't absorbed all that radiation yet. Excuse me. In 1955, Shaw and Kieko attend a defense industry ball where they bond and they get close together and basically suck up to the rich people that they need to get money and stuff. Bill recalls them to Monarch headquarters, cockbuckling Shaw. So basically, Shaw and Kieko were about to get it on, and then he's like, "Hey, I got a call for Lieutenant Shaw. Lieutenant Shaw." Yeah.
He's like, "Oh God!"
Right. They learned that Suzuki, a Japanese scientist, has captured isotopic signatures with his Titan lore. As Bill and Kieko travel to meet Suzuki, Shaw reluctantly stays behind to present a budget proposal, but he eventually abandons the meeting and joins them in Japan due to his feelings for Kieko. Godzilla destroys the lore. Returning to the United States to inform Puckett of Godzilla's survival, they learn that he has transferred Monarch's command to in Shaw's absence, so they're under new leadership, and Shaw's not the head honcho anymore of Monarch. In 1955,
So
Monarch's
this Puckett guy, this General Puckett's not in charge anymore.
Yeah, he gave it to a new dude. Monarch's new head, Lieutenant Commander Hatch, questions Shaw, Kieko, and Bill's evidence of the Titan's existence. Bill assaults Hatch while defending Kieko from a racist remark. He says that they found some stuff in her background, and then he punches him and then punches the wall and messes up his hand. With Monarch's existence in jeopardy, Shaw convinces Kieko and Bill to compile all their research together. Bill realizes that Titans evade direct detection through the Hollow Earth. So this is where Bill comes up with the Hollow Earth theory because he sees an ant crawl through a map and he's like, "Oh, it's underneath. It's underneath." So,
Thank you for that. all so 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 another thing here is they also start this theory, and I might be jumping ahead, so I apologize, but basically they say that they cannot go through these wormholes in the hollow earth unless a titan is with them, that humans can't go through it. They have to have a titan has a biological signature that could open up the portal for people to go through to the Hollow Earth. And I'm probably jumping ahead. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. While sharing his findings with Kieko, he learns that she is a widow, raising Hiroshi, sorry, raising Hiroshi alone. Hiroshi, her son. Bill offers to adopt Hiroshi as a last resort. Shaw reveals Godzilla's survival while presenting Kieko and Bill's findings to Puckett in like a last ditch effort to save Monarch. In
Okay,
1950,
what kills me is like we never find out who Hiroshi's dad is. Like she's all of a sudden has this kid and she's had a kid the whole time. Like I thought that the show was building towards that like and her had a kid. Like somewhere along Shaw and her had a kid and it wasn't Bill's kid. And like eventually, they did get together. I thought that's what they were going to reveal and get to, but for her to have this one kid just out of nowhere, I kind of felt like it didn't really help the story.
Yeah.
I
Like,
mean, you do gotta realize that she came over right after World War II, right?
yeah, oh yeah,
So it
Yeah,
could
it's
be
true.
that
Yeah.
after Hiroshima or whatever, maybe he lost his father, and that's why she's
yeah, that's a
you
good
know.
point because she's a widow, and yeah, okay, yeah, you're right. Sorry,
No, I
continue
mean
on.
they don't
You're right.
say that specifically, but after seeing -1 and seeing all that devastation that happened, you know,
You're right, dude.
that's where my head went. Um, so in 1959, Bill Randa and Kyoko Miura follow radiation in Kazakhstan with fellow Monarch official Colonel Leland Shaw. A boy claims that the radiation is a cover story for a hole drilled through the earth. Bill and Kyoko discover the radiation levels drop to zero around a power plant, and the hollow caverns exist in the bedrock beneath. Venturing inside, they discover eggs belonging to an insectoid endoswarmers. Kyoko and Shaw rappel down to collect genetic material from the eggs. But endoswarmer larvae awaken from the eggs and drag Kyoko into a deep pit, and they're not able to rescue her.
And she falls into the Hollow Earth, right?
Yes.
Okay,
But they think she's dead.
right.
In 1962, Shaw volunteered to lead Operations Hourglass, an expedition into the Hollow Earth. Suzuki's Titan lore is used to induce a partial Titan emergence and stabilize a rift. And during the launch, the rift destabilizes and closes. Monarch's funding is cut due to the outcome of the Operation Hourglass. Meanwhile, an ion dragon kills Shaw's stranded team while he's sucked back through the rift.
So help me here, guys. So the Hollow Earth that we see in Godzilla versus Kong, that is not the same Hollow Earth as this, right? Or is
What do you
this
mean?
another layer of it?
Where she got trapped at?
S right. So, like, which we'll get to in like a second, but
Like the
like,
part with time dilation and stuff?
yeah, the time dilation stuff. So they say that the gravity there is different, so time's different. But how come in this part of Hollow Earth there's time displacement? There's time displacement, but when they go into like the deep of the Hollow Earth, like there's no time difference. Why
I
is there
do
a
feel
time?
like she explains it, jumping ahead a little bit. I do feel like she explains it when she's talking to Shaw later, that there is parts that do that, where there's like a time dilation thing. And then, maybe jumping ahead a little bit, but um, I mean, this is something I saw that it looked like they were following that Titan through, right? and it looked like the Titan, instead of like following the path that they were kind of like that the wormhole or whatever goes, the Titan just went straight through, and they went straight through with that, like that when they were following the dragon or whatever. And it's like instead of like going through how they would have normally, where maybe they would have ended up on the Hollow Earth that Kong is in, I feel like they, like a time stream type of thing, they went right through it,
Like in Bill and
because
Ted.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, because it looked like there was a trail, and then like the dragon thing just went straight through, and then they followed because that thing that they had would propel itself, right? It was just like weighted down and just like followed the
Yeah, the
thing.
lore was like
Yeah, like a
barely
fishing lure.
attached. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I saw. I was like, oh, I see how they got lost or cut off or whatever. So that's something I observed. Maybe I'm wrong, but
That makes sense to me.
Now that makes perfect sense because we'll call it the Bill and Ted theory. And Bill and Ted, when they're going through the strands of time, like the wormholes of time, like they'll type in a number and they're supposed to go a direct way to that time. But when the antenna was broke, they drifted off of that path they were supposed to and they ended up in different times. So that makes perfect sense. And that's physics, baby.
I mean, it would have happened in Avengers Endgame too if they, did some weird stuff and
They would end
split
up a
off.
baby.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, see,
Yeah.
Baby Godzilla.
God.
Baby, I don't know. Kurt Russell. Baby Kurt Russell. All right. So jumping now to the next thing on the list. So we're gonna take a little break from Monarch here because some things happen in this time difference. So listeners, Shaw, his whole team's dead. Shaw's in the Hollow Earth. That's where we left him. All right. So then Kong Skull Island happens. So jump to 1973. So now that was in 1962. So 11 years, 11-year time jump here. And 1973, we see Bill Randa. Bill Randa is now John Goodman. He's not the other guy. Okay. Bill Randa, John Goodman. And he's the head of the U.S. government organization Monarch. We know what Monarch is. And they have plans to they plan a search for creatures that have been recently discovered on Skull Island via their fancy satellite. He recruits a U.S. Army unit commanded by Lieutenant Colonel Preston Packard, uh, tracker, and former British Special Air Service Captain James Conrad. That's a mouthful. So that's played by Tom Hiddleston. The Preston Packard is played by Toby Kibble, who was Doctor Doom, I believe, in the 2015 horrible Fantastic Four. I think yes.
Fan Four Stick, yes,
There we go, Fan Four Stick.
Fan Four Stick.
And so he's got Doctor Doom on his team. He's got Loki playing some guy named James Conrad, and anti-war photographer Captain Marvel. And they arrive at Skull Island, and Packer's men begin dropping seismic explosives developed by Randa's seismologist Houston Brooks, which I can't remember what other movie that guy's from. But they're trying to map out the island and prove Brooks's Hollow Earth theory, which is contradicting to Monarch because the Hollow Earth theory is Bill Randa's theory. So immediate contradiction that this kid is taking credit for Bill's work, but I don't know, whatever. so the unit is attacked by a giant ape when they get to the island. Important thing here is Skull Island is covered by this like cloud of things. Some people believe Skull Island to be kind of the Bermuda Triangle, but there's all these weather things. You can't see the island. It's like Themyscira in Wonder Woman. It's kind of like that. So they get through the hurricane clouds and they get through. And I'm so sorry. Packard's no. Samuel L. Jackson's playing Packard, right? So I screwed it up. But Doctor Doom is there. Toby Kidd was there.
Doctor Doom is his he's like Packard's right hand man, Chapman.
Yeah, friend.
Plays
Yeah.
Chapman. Yeah,
Chapman,
but
right?
yeah. So we got Nick Fury, we got Captain Marvel, we got Loki, we got Doctor Doom, we got a couple other people too. We got Eazy-E and Dr. Dre from NWA.
Sure
Yeah,
do.
man. This movie had
So
everything.
yes. So we got Nick Fury. So Nick Fury's here. So so the unit's attacked by the ape and it scatters it. He attacks all these helicopters. It's an awesome scene. Then the survivors get scattered across the island, and two groups were formed between the survivors. One with Conrad, Weaver, Neves. So basically, Loki. Trying to remember who everybody plays. Yes. So we got Loki, Captain Marvel, and Neves, researchers, and one of the soldiers. The other with Randa and the rest. Packard or Nick Fury searches for the transport helicopter piloted by his right hand man, Doctor Doom, intending to use the weapons on board that helicopter to kill Kong. Um, Loki's group encounters the local Iwi natives. That's very important. This tribe is very important. They encounter the Iwi natives and an older Marlowe, played by Step Brothers dude John C. Riley, also in uh, Guardians of the Galaxy.
He's Nova. Yeah.
Nova. Yep.
Nova, yes. Marlowe tells a group about the giant ape named Kong, and he says he protects the island from predators. And these predators include a race of subterranean reptilian creatures dubbed skull crawlers. These creatures are freaking awesome. But these creatures were awakened by bombing the dang island. And these skull crawlers have also killed Kong's entire family. So keep that in mind. They killed Kong's entire family, and there's these race of people called Iwi natives. And Kong is the last of his kind. He's the last son of Crypt Kong. and Marlowe reveals that him and his Japanese friend became friends in their time, and Akari was killed by a skull crawler some time ago. So as Chapman is ambushed and devoured by a skull crawler, who's Doctor Doom gets eaten, Conrad, Loki's group, helps Marlowe finish a boat made from parts of Marlowe and Akari's down planes. They ride the river, and there's all these birds. They're trying to get to the north side of the island, so they get picked up by a helicopter and saved. Okay, this also takes place right after Vietnam. So Nick Fury's character basically doesn't want the war to end because he's Nick Fury. So his drive in this is basically to keep war going, and he finds King Kong. So
Well, quickly on that is basically when they arrive on the island and they drop those charges, Kong gets pissed and basically starts like swatting around the helicopters and basically kills a bunch of Nick Fury's men, or Samuel Jackson, sorry. Kills a bunch of his men, and so basically he's just like, he's over, he wants the war to keep going, but he's pissed that his guys are gone, so he declares war on Kong.
Absolutely. And it's pretty darn cool. Yes. Okay. So they find out that Chapman's dead. This makes Nick Fury even more pissed. He tries to kill Kong. Everybody finds out that Kong is just nice and he doesn't really want to hurt anybody. He actually wants to protect them. And he only killed those people because they were kind of a threat in his face. So, and John C. Reilly's character says, if you kill Kong, he's the god here. Like, these skull crawlers are just going to kill us all. So in the final fight, Nick Fury tries to attack Kong with napalm, kind of like knocks him out a little bit. They eventually like resuscitate Kong. Kong kills all the skull crawlers, and they get off the island, and everybody lives happily ever after. But Bill Randa gets freaking killed. How does Bill Randa, John Goodman's character, get killed? Everybody, anybody? Anybody? Anybody?
Doesn't he get bit up by one of the skull crawlers in the gas field?
I think he does.
He does.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir. So that's how so Randa dies that way. But in the midst of that, somehow Randa takes files of Monarch and he throws them into the water off of Skull Island, and these paperwork drifts somewhere.
Now, where does that match up in Skull Island from the Monarch opening scene?
The Monarch opening scene.
Yeah, but where in the Skull Island does that match? Because I remember you telling us where.
I'm not sure because I don't because he's like Randa. That's where this kind of contradicts for me because Randa is with them in the freaking jungle. So, and then like they first encounter the spiders while they're kind of walking through the jungle. So if the spider is after him, like there is a scene where one of the spider's legs goes through one of the dudes.
Yeah.
The one
Yeah.
guy, yeah.
Freaking awesome. So somewhere in there,
I think he
I
like books it.
Was
yeah,
it
and
that part, or
I
was it when the giant like log looking thing was chasing him? Maybe.
I'm not
Is
sure
that-
because I think it's contradictory because like John Goodman was with all the other guys.
Now,
So
if you remember though, you don't see him in those areas where the spiders were at.
Ah, okay.
Like when they're all shooting and then one guy gets impaled by one, they
Yeah.
never show John Goodman in that scene at all.
Okay. And then in Monarch, he was chased by a spider, right?
Spider, yeah.
yeah.
And then the crab thing comes and like stops that thing, and then they fall off.
Yeah.
So maybe it's like right around that time, then, right?
Yeah, and then like he meets up with them maybe later is what
Yeah,
I'm
because it seemed like
thinking.
he was. It seemed like he filmed that quick message, like "There's something I got to tell you." Da, 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 I've been doing all this stuff, and then seals it in the bag, tosses it over because he thinks he's gonna die.
The only thing I
And
could think of to maybe prove it is I didn't get a chance to watch this, but when John Goodman dies in Skull Island, does he have the bag with him or does he have nothing on him?
I could have sworn that he did have the bag.
See, I can't. I meant to go check it, but I just didn't have the time. That would
Well,
probably clear up most of this. If he dies with the bag, it's a contradiction.
he had the camera. The camera, like he when he gets eaten, the camera, like he was
Does he
messing
still
with the
have the
camera.
camera? I
Yeah,
thought he was
because things
talking to
followed the
them.
camera, and that's how they were able to track the thing
Ah, okay. So
and the
yeah,
gas.
I
because
know
he
that one
clearly
guy.
breaks it.
Well, I know that one guy that was with them. He had a bag the whole time too, and it had like the Monarch logo. But when he got eaten, yeah, he had a bag on him. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Contradictor. Telling you, contradicts. But Kong crushes Packard. He just steps on him. It's a pretty cool scene. This whole movie's pretty sweet, and Kong is victorious in the end, and he lets everybody leave. Marlowe, John C. Reilly's character, gets to see his family after all these years, and drink a beer and eat a hot dog and watch a Cubs game. It's a really good scene. And in the post-credit scene, Monarch detains and recruits Loki and Captain Marvel to the team, even though we never see him again because they're off, fighting Thanos. And they're informed by the Brooks guy that Kong is not the only monster. And then they show kind of archive footage of Godzilla, Mothra, Rodan, and King Ghidorah. So that's that part.
And then we get
Okay.
Godzilla's scream at the end.
And we get Godzilla scream. Okay. So, how much money did that make? My apologies. Where are you? There we are. Okay, the King Kong movie. Its budget was about 185 million, and it made 568.6 million. So it did pretty darn good, and I like that movie. And where was I? I'm so sorry. Okay, it's important to note that no, we already talked about that. All right, Skull Island TV series, extremely brief. So that show is on Netflix. It's about 8 episodes. I would consider it kind of like Kong Skull Island, like the sequel. It stands alone on itself, but basically, to try to sum it up as fast as and possible, and kind of have it make sense. We meet these two best friends, Charlie and Mike, and they have their fathers, Cap, who's the captain of the ship, and Hero, and they're on an expedition in the South Pacific in search of cryptids. Now, Charlie discovers a mysterious girl adrift in the ocean, and she says her name is Annie, and explains that she escaped from another ship that were trying to get her. She becomes alarmed when they see a flare in the distance, but the ship that is in the distance mysteriously sinks. Two mercenaries sneak aboard the group's vessel to capture Annie, but the boat is suddenly attacked by a giant kraken. The creature destroys the boat, killing both mercenaries and most of the crew, and Charlie and Mike wash up on the shore of Skull Island. So, Annie, so basically, to the short and sweet of it, the Captain Hero were looking for a map to Skull Island. They were hired by this very, very rich woman who's Annie's mom. And Annie's mom has been looking for Annie because while they were on a ship, while Annie was very like 6 years old, she's 16 now. 10 years ago, Annie was on a ship and it was attacked by the Kraken, or it was attacked by the beast that Annie's the father beast of this. It's like this dog lion beast, and Annie ends up riding the kid, the son of this beast that killed her father. So both their fathers kind of kill each other, her and this beast, and she bonds with this beast. And she rides this beast. And Annie has no social skills. She doesn't understand anything about life. She doesn't know what things are. All she knows is living on Skull Island with her beast friend. And then there's Kong. And so she's very animalistic. And basically the whole story is her mom trying to find her, and basically them trying to get off this island. And basically, you find out also in the story that Kong had a relationship. Well, Kong, had a friend relationship. I mean, come on, had a friend relationship, and you see the bond with Kong and the Iwi tribe, and why Kong is kind of drawn to females and female characters. So in this story, basically the only members of the tribe or anybody that were kind to him, was this woman and her daughter. And her daughter had this necklace with her. And so Kong, they're the only people that showed him kindness. So that's why Kong is kind of attached to it. And eventually the show ends with them encouraging Kong to kill this Kraken. He finally kills the Kraken, and people get off the island, and it really adds nothing to the overall story. It's kind of like a cut and dry thing. So that's the show. Now, and that show takes place actually ironically in the 90s. But yeah. So back to Monarch with Finch.
In 1982, Shaw awakens in a Monarch medical facility, holding nurse Emiko hostage and demanding to see Bill Shaw. He's met with the adult version of Hiroshi. Hiroshi reveals that Bill has died. Monarch intends to abandon their mission and leave the Titans undisturbed. Shaw is placed under house arrest. It's like a fancy facility, but he's basically locked up. And 32 years later, he sees news of Godzilla fighting the male Muto in Hawaii. Enter the Godzilla film.
So important thing to add here is Kurt Russell's character of Shaw, as the older version, is supposed to be 90 some years old. And the reason he doesn't look 90 years old and he passes for a 70-year-old is because 20 years in this hollow earth, when he came back and escaped from it, there was a time displacement thing. So he didn't age while he was in there so he was only in there for like a little bit, but it jumped 20 years. So that's why he didn't age.
Yeah, I think he said he spent a week down there.
I think you're right, sir. Yeah, it was like a week, but jumped 20 some years. So craziness. So Steve, 2014 Godzilla movie. Basically, what happens, buddy?
Well, basically, the opening of the movie, you see Godzilla is lured to Bikini Atoll and attempt to kill him with a nuclear bomb, which does not work. So we zoom into 1999, where monarch scientists Ishiro Surazawa and Vivian Graham investigate the skeleton of a monster similar to Godzilla in a cavern unearthed by a collapsed uranium mine in the Philippines. They also find two giant spores, one dormant and one hatched, along with a trail leading to the sea. In Japan, the Jinjira nuclear power plant experiences unusual earthquake activity, and supervisor John Brody, which is played by Bryan Cranston, I believe, sends his wife
Yes, sir.
Sandra to lead a team of technicians into the reactor, where a tremor breaches the reactor and basically a big cloud of radiation comes and just kills everybody in there. But before he gives it time, before it happens, before he closes the reactor
And it's his
door.
birthday. It's his birthday, for God's
Yeah,
sakes.
I forgot about that. They were setting up for the birthday before
Yeah.
they left,
Yep.
and he waited as long as he could, and he closed it. But before the outer door would close, his wife was there, and they had a nice touching moment, I believe. I mean, that'd suck to see your wife before she dies.
On your birthday.
Yeah. But and then they all escape. So we zoom 15 years later, you got Joe and Sandra's son Ford, which is a US Navy EOD
Quicksilver.
officer. Quicksilver, yes. Which I believe is he dismantles bombs in EOD, I believe. Is he the
I
guy that
think
goes
so.
and okay. Well, regardless, and then he returns from a tour to duty to his wife's sister, Elle, or Scarlet Witch, and son Sam in San Francisco, which I think is weird, as I can't see them.
It's like the Ultimate Universe
Ugh.
in the 2000s, where they were members of the Avengers and they were pretty much banging each other, brother and sister. And we as kids were reading this as teenagers and like, oh, okay, yeah, sure.
Man, these Monsterverse movies all Marvel people, man.
Mm-hmm.
But
How
and this is owned
what?
by Warner Brothers, who
Which
owns
is
DC.
DC.
Yep. Uh-huh.
So, however, whenever he gets there, he has to immediately depart because he finds out that his dad Joe is detained for going into the Jajira's quarantine zone. He's looking for something. So, he's determined to find out the cause of the meltdown because he thinks something's fishy about it. And when Ford gets there, he persuades Ford to accompany him to their old house to retrieve some data from their home. They learned that in the zone is uncontaminated and retrieve the data, but are discovered and taken to a facility in the plant's ruins. The facility harbors a massive chrysalis that over time a giant winged insect-like creature emerges and escapes, destroying the facility where Joe, unfortunately, is severely injured and later dies on a helicopter, which I think was too soon for that character.
Absolutely.
Like,
Like
they should have fleshed that out more. I
they
don't
sold
mean,
this movie that Bryan Cranston's gonna be a big part of this movie. And then like they kill him in the first 40 minutes of the movie, and
mhm.
he's only in maybe 10 minutes.
And they give you
And
this whole grief between him and his son. Like, why
yeah,
not play that on more?
exactly. Like, yeah, like the whole movie, like the whole big part of it is that you're ignoring your son. You know, like you almost hear, cats in the cradle and the steel,
Yep.
little boy blue and the man in the moon. When you coming, Dad, I don't know
No
when.
win.
We'll get together then, Dad. I know we'll have a good time then. No, you won't, because Godzilla killed your dad. You don't get
Well,
crap.
not Godzilla. The Mutos or the Muto
Mutos,
killed him.
the massive unidentified terrestrial organisms that
Yes.
we couldn't give them a better name, so we just give them this classification for these giant freaking cockroaches. And
Yeah.
and what's important also is that so these mutos were feeding off the radiation at that plant.
Yes.
That's what
That's
killed the
which
wife,
was which was
and the government
causing the
covered it up.
earthquakes and all that. Yeah.
This movie's like main message is basically crap's going on. The government is going to lie to you and cover it up.
Yep.
That that's what's going on.
Yep.
That's all they do.
It's like the birds that are security
Birds aren't
cameras.
real.
They're government cameras.
Oh my gosh.
Good old cousins.
All right.
So yeah,
Back onto
Mutos.
this.
Mutos.
So they joined the U.S. Navy task force to search for the creatures they dubbed Muto. Shirazawa and Graham revealed to Ford that a 1954 deep sea expedition awakened Godzilla. Nuclear tests in 1950s were attempt to kill him, which didn't work. And then Project Monarch was established to study Godzilla and similar monsters secretly, which we see in
Monarch.
Monarch. Yes. They also explained that the Muto caused the Genera meltdown. Ford reveals Joe had monitored the echolocation signals, indicating that the Muto was communing with something else, presumably Godzilla, they thought. So the Muto attacks a Russian submarine and drops it in Oahu to eat its nuclear material that was on board. And Godzilla senses it and arrives and causes a huge tsunami in Honolulu and briefly engages the Muto in battle until it flees.
And we finally
I
see
think,
Godzilla like
and
an
I
hour in.
love how they did that scene. They made it all quiet, and all of a sudden you just see a big foot come down.
Yeah,
Ugh, I love that scene.
it was good.
And I do agree. I think they did it on purpose, made it dark, so you didn't get that reveal of Godzilla until almost the very end. But
What do you think, Vince? Do you think that the real Godzilla in there was good? You think it was just enough? Too little?
At that point, I think it was finally like, yeah, we're getting some action. This is the part where, yeah, I thought it was good, but at the same time, I'm like, I just want to see Godzilla.
Exactly. You're totally right.
Yep. So at this point, Ford's at the airport with a kid when this attack goes on, and they end up finding the kid's parents and all that. And Godzilla leaves, the Muto escapes, and we get to the point where they're talking about doing another nuclear bomb, I believe. But they have to use a different type of detonation device because the Mutos, when their one power is when they hit the ground, they cause this huge EMP that takes out all electronics. So that's why they have to use, I believe, a rollover timer or something with gears and stuff so that
Something like
the
that.
Muto can't do anything about it. So that's they all disappear. Ford hops a ride with them, telling them that he's the only one that could do this and everything. So he hops the
Quicksilver.
train.
Quicksilver. They won't
He's
see it coming.
Quicksilver. Yep, he can do it super fast.
You didn't see that coming?
You sound just like him.
Yeah. So the attack on Honolulu prompted them to check in the Yucca Mountain Nuclear Waste Repository, in Nevada where they stored the other spore to see what's going on. And they find out another Muda is out there and it broke out and then heads to Las Vegas, destroys Las Vegas. Henning, I'm assuming, yeah. So it was the female was the first one to come out, and the male was the one that came out in
Oh,
Vegas.
daddy, she has all these babies, like
You can
thousands of
see them all glowing in her.
creepy.
So they find out that the signals they've been getting were a mating call between the two Mudos. So, over the scientists' objection, Stentz approves the plan of using the nuclear warheads to lure all three monsters out into the open ocean and destroy them, returning to the U.S., which clearly didn't work before, so why would you even think it would work this time? So, Ford joins delivering the team, but the female intercepts them, destroys the train, and Ford jumps off the bridge, and the Muto goes, and they all head for San Francisco. So,
Finch.
yeah. So after the train attack, they found the remaining warhead, airlifted it with Ford to San Francisco, where the monsters were converging, and activated it after Godzilla appears at the Golden Gate Bridge, which is also, which I'm assuming we're going to talk about a little bit later, is in the scene in Monarch too, with the buses.
Yep.
Which I tried to see if in Godzilla you could see a hint of that in there, but you never really see anything with the teachers or anything. It's just the nerd.
Well, there's like a whole trail of buses. 'cause
Yeah.
they were evacuating people. So.
Yeah. So he destroys the Golden Gate Bridge, only for the Muto to snatch the nuke and take it to the female, who forms a nest in Chinatown area and leaves the nuke for their babies to consume. So while Godzilla and the Mutos are battling, Ford and a strike team enter the city via a halo jump to find and disarm the warhead before it detonates. Another scene, done perfectly. Unable to access the timer, the team gets the warhead onto a boat for disposal at sea while Ford destroys the nest. Godzilla defeats the Mutos and collapses on the shore from exhaustion. While that happens, Ford gets the boat out to the open sea and is rescued before the warhead explodes, and reunites with his family at an emergency shelter the following morning, where you see Godzilla reawake and return to the sea, while the media dubs him King of Monsters and speculates whether he must be a savior or a villain. So,
Finch. The second half of Monarch happens a year after Godzilla. What happens, man?
Well, actually, there's a little bit of stuff that happens before Godzilla's emergence. So in 2012, one of the characters we meet in Monarch is May. May, then known as Cora Mateo. Yeah, from the new Flash movie. That's why I kept telling my wife, I was like, I know that girl. But she had like long hair, so it looked different. But I knew her. Then known as Cora Mateo, is recruited by AET. Dissatisfied with the secrecy around her work, she hacks into AET systems and discovers that they are a front for Monarch's cybernetic animal experimentation. She destroys AET's research and flees to Japan under a false identity. In 2013, Kentaro meets May while waiting for his first art show. Kentaro is Hiroshi's son, which we'll be introduced to in a little bit. He meets her at his first art show at a prestigious gallery. He chooses to spend the evening with her instead of preparing for the show, and they bond. Kentaro ultimately decides to present his art before he is ready to do so, out of a desire to make his father proud. The night of the gallery is the last time he sees Hiroshi before the latter's disappearance.
And
And then
Hiroshi is the son of Keiko. This is
and
grown up Hiroshi, her son from the earlier part. This
yes,
is her
Bill
grandson.
Randa's son.
Yeah,
And then this is her grandson. Sorry.
grandson. Yes, sir.
All right. So we're in 2014, 2 days before Godzilla's emergence. Kate, who is, we also find out, she is Hiroshi's daughter who lives in San Francisco. Before Godzilla's emergence, she is in a relationship with a fellow teacher, Danny. On G Day, feeling guilty over having cheated on Danny, Kate chooses to leave her behind to chaperone a bus of children across the Golden Gate Bridge. Many of the children are killed when Godzilla crashes through the bridge during his clash with the military. 5 days after G Day, Hiroshi gives a plane ticket or a bus ticket to his daughter, Kate, and her mother, and says, I got to take care of something, and dips out. A year
Oh,
later,
good catch. I missed that.
Godzilla's battles with the Mutos in San Francisco traumatized Kate Randa, and she travels to Tokyo to settle her father's affairs. After her father, Hiroshi, she discovers, has a second wife, Amiko, the nurse of Shaw, that was held at, he held her for ransom, or basically trying to get evidence about Bill, and her son, Kentaro, in Japan. Kentaro leads Kate to Hiroshi's office, where she discovers a safe containing files belonging to her grandfather, Bill Randa, Monarch researcher. Seeking answers about Monarch's presence in San Francisco and Hiroshi's connection to them, Kate and Kentaro recruit Kentaro's ex-girlfriend, May Aulette Hewitt, to decode the files because she's a tech genius or whatever. In 2015, this is still the same year, Kentaro discovers Monarch files in Hiroshi's office indicating that Shaw, his honorary great uncle, moved to an assisted living facility in Japan. Tim and Monarch field operative Michelle Duvall track down Kate, Kentaro, and May in an attempt to find the decoded files, but they escape. Kate, Kentaro, and May go on the run and find Shaw, who reveals that the facility is a pretense for Monarch to keep him under their arrest. Shaw convinces them to escape from the facility and follow Hiroshi to his last known location in Alaska. So they believe that their dad died in Alaska, but Shaw doesn't think he died, and he says, let's go find him. So Kate, Kentaro, May, and Shaw escape Japan on a ferry bound for Pohang, Korea. In Pohang, they are stopped by border guards before one of them, Duho, reveals himself as Shaw's old friend. Duho transports him to Alaska on a plane. On the way, May infers from Bill's files that Hiroshi was likely following a list of coordinates identified by Monarch. In Alaska, they find the wreckage of Hiroshi's plane, as well as an encampment suggesting his survival. Duho realizes that Hiroshi's plane was attacked after landing, he didn't crash. They landed and he was attacked. A frost vark kills him and destroys his plane.
Awesome part of the show.
When
Part of the show.
Duho gets killed by the frost vark.
Yeah, this frost monster. Oh, it's awesome. I'm an Iceman fan, so anything with ice, I think is cool. But that was cool.
The Frostvark's emergence is detected by Monarch because there's like this wormhole thing. Kate, Kentaro, May, and Shaw manage to escape the Frostvark, but May falls into a pool of water and she quickly develops hypothermia as they try to find shelter. Kentaro splits off from the rest of the group because he's like, we got to go this way. I saw something. And they're like, no, you didn't see that. We're going to go follow these lights. And he's like, no. And they're like, okay, well, good riddance. Hope if you find help, go find help. So he splits off from the rest of the group, finds a building that he saw from the plane, which turns out to be an old radio station that had previously been repaired by Hiroshi. Of the Frostvark feeds on heat energy. Kate, May, and Shaw create a bonfire to distract it long enough for a helicopter that Kentaro contacted when he arrived at the shed and the rescue team. The group are taken to Monarch Outpost, where they are greeted by Tim and Duvall. Monarch Deputy Director Natalia Verdugo is frustrated to learn that Shaw has kept Kate, Kentaro, and May in the dark about Hiroshi's activities in Alaska. Duvall suggests releasing the three to track their movements. After returning to San Francisco, Kate convinces her mother, Caroline, and Caroline's colleague, James, to smuggle them towards Hiroshi's office in the restricted zone of San Francisco's ruins. Evading military protocols and patrols and dealing with Kate's PTSD, they eventually get to Hiroshi's office, where they fail to find any other hidden files. Kitaro concludes from Hiroshi's maps that he likely headed to Africa in search of the Titans. But the way they do this is basically they find this map, they see like these little holes or something. He holds it up to the light, and it's like some national treasure stuff where they like and they're like the hidden lines that are like, oh, this is this and this is that, and that's how they do that. So they know to go to. They take the map, they take it back to get out of there safely. Um, and then May secretly contacts Duvall asking to go home in exchange for her cooperation. So like Duvall offered her a chance to free her name and everything like that. And she, to basically like be a double agent or spy or whatever. Duvall breaks Shaw out of the captivity, revealing that she joined Monarch after her sister, who was Bryan Cranston's wife, who died in Godzilla, is one of the field operatives for Monarch, and she's been chasing him, and she's the one who made an agreement with.
That was a nice tie. That was nice.
Yeah, yeah.
Like once she like says that was my sister, like then I saw it in the face and I was like, oh, they do look similar. Are they really sisters? And I didn't look it up, but
yeah, I didn't. Yeah, I thought it's like, oh, it's all connecting, like all these, like how everyone says like Star Wars is so small, like everybody connected, but it's like it's all connected and it works.
oh.
So his sister is the one who died in the power plant in Godzilla. This made her need to know the truth. They take Kate, Kentaro, and May to the Algerian Sahara, where they find Hiroshi using a Titan lore. He warns them to escape before fleeing. So they see their dad. He's like, "Get out of here! Get out of here!" Godzilla emerges.
Like, is he telling us to come? Is he telling us to come closer? Like he's clearly like, get the F out of here, morons.
So then the Monarch agents also get to where they're at, their location in the Sahara. And as like this is happening, boom, Godzilla comes up from the ground. Godzilla emerges, causes their helicopter to crash. Shaw and Duvall reveal their intent to follow and help Godzilla, but Kate, Kitaro, and May leave to find Hiroshi. So they're still looking for their dad, but Shaw and Duvall, they're like, we're going to go chase after Godzilla and we're going to go take care of some stuff. Kate and Kitaro are angered when May reveals that she allowed Monarch to track them. So she finally tells them like, hey, I told them. Then they're waiting for an airplane, and May is kidnapped at the airport in Tindouf. Is that how you say it? Tindouf? I don't know.
Yeah, it's Algeria.
Algeria, by her former employee, Applied Experimental Technologies, or AET, who give her a choice on spying on Monarch or being prosecuted because she basically messed up their files, deleted them, stole their files, things like that. So her boss tells her, you can either spy for me on Monarch because you're kind of working with them anyway, or you can be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. Basically, go to jail. Kate meets Tim when he arrives at the airport and asks him to help locate May. Tim, Kate, and Kitaro find May's family in Tacoma, Washington, learn about her past from her sister, Lara. They trigger a false Titan alert to rescue May from AET, but she chooses not to spy on Monarch and stays behind. Verdugo is convinced by Kate to secure May's release in exchange to help understanding Shaw's plans, and by Tim to take Monarch public and explain the alert. So basically, they had this prototype Titan alarm, and he uses it to try to get May out. And then when they realize that that's a false alarm, but she gets out, and then the head of Monarch, Tim, convinces her like, "Hey, you should go public with this because everybody now knows Monarch's a thing anyway." So. After reaching an agreement with Monarch, AET rebrands to Apex Cybernetics, which will come into play in Godzilla vs. Kong.
Yeah.
Shaw and Duvall then take over the Alaskan Monarch outpost and detonate a rift to the Hollow Earth to seal it. So that's Shaw's plan. It's basically close these rifts and stop the Titans from emerging. Shaw and Duvall returned to the Kazakh power plant where the Kiko was killed in 1959, now enclosed in a containment facility. Kate, Kentaro, May, and Tim say that the Shaw is trying to rectify the past. Verdugo sends them after Shaw with a small team. Inside, Shaw and Duvall confront the team. Speaking with Kate alone, Shaw explains that he intends to help Godzilla maintain order by separating the Hollow Earth from the surface world. As Shaw primes explosive charges around a rift, the Hollow Earth inside the pit, and an adult endoswarmer emerges. May, Kate, and Shaw and the endoswarmer fall back into the rift shortly before its destruction.
Drama.
Monarch rescues Kentaro and Tim, and Verdugo informs Kentaro of Kate, May, and Shaw's losses. His mother, Emiko, inspires him to continue searching. When Hiroshi returns to his office, Kentaro confronts him. Meanwhile, Shaw and May awaken in an intermediate realm between the surface and the Hollow Earth, Axis Mundi, and search for Kate. Elsewhere, Kate is attacked by a bramble boar, but is rescued by an unaged Kieko. Dun,
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 dun.
Big reveal.
She's not dead. She is alive. Kieko explains to Kate that she rigged the Titan lore from the Operation Hourglass to send a distress signal from the Hollow Earth. They reunite with May and Shaw. Kiko is devastated to learn that the decades have passed and that Bill never returned from his expedition on Skull Island. Tim leaves Monarch after clashing with Verdugo over her refusal to investigate Kieko's signal that she's sending, and instead notifies Kentaro and Hiroshi. As Shaw and Kiko reconnect the lore to the operational Hourglass launch vehicle, she reveals that her intention to remain behind, but Kate persuades her otherwise. Shaw activates the vehicle, but inadvertently lures an ion dragon already present in Axis Mundi. Shaw exits the vehicle to reconnect the cable dislodged by the dragon. Godzilla emerges through a rift and battles the dragon, eventually throwing it back through the rift and activating the vehicle. As Kieko struggles to bring Shaw back into the vehicle, he sacrifices himself and to allow them to escape. At an apex site, okay, so then we jump to 2 years. We jump 2 years when they come out at an Apex Cybernetic Research Station on Skull Island. Hiroshi successfully returns the vehicle to the surface. He, Kentaro, and Tim, now working with Apex, reunite with Kate, Kieko, and May. They evacuate the research facility as an alarm triggers and Kong emerges and approaches, and you see him. And that's the end of how Monarch, we'll say season 1. I feel like there's going to be another season.
There's got to be more.
Yeah.
There's got to be more. Like, but why was Kong after that facility? Maybe I missed that.
Maybe he sensed the rift opening and Godzilla was down there.
Maybe that's it.
I don't know.
Maybe that's it. Okay, so that was 2017 that ends. Okay. Now we're jumping 2 years to King of the Monsters. Steve, you want to briefly break down the plot of King of the Monsters there, my man?
Yep. Basically, 5 years after the existence of giant monsters called Titans was revealed to the world, Dr. Emma Russell, a paleontologist working for the Titan study organization Monarch, and her daughter Madison witnessed the birth of a larva called Mothra. Emma calms Mothra using the Orca, a device that can emit frequencies to attract or alter Titan behavior. A group of eco-terrorists led by former British Army Colonel Alan Jonah attacks the base and abducts Emma and Madison. At the same time, Mothra flees and pupates under a nearby waterfall.
Guess that means like chill. Pupates?
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. No idea what that means. It's a life stage in some insects undergoing transformation between immature and mature stages.
See, you already had it in your notes. butthole.
Monarch scientists Sarazawa and Vivian Graham approached former employee Dr. Mark Russell, Emma's ex-husband and Madison's father, to help track them down. Mark is reluctant at first due to his hatred towards Godzilla, whom he blames for his son's death, Andrew, during the events in San Francisco, but eventually agrees. The Monarch team follows Godzilla to Antarctica, where Jonah plans to free a three-headed titan codenamed Monster Zero.
Hell yeah!
Emma frees and awakens Monster Zero, who proves to be hostile. He slaughters Monarch's G-Team, battles Godzilla, and devours Graham before escaping. The team later realizes that Emma is working with the terrorists from the Monarch bunker. Emma contacts Monarch and
That
argues
bitch.
that the Titans must be awakened to heal the Earth from the human impact on the environment, pointing to Monarch research indicating that Titans can terraform and replenish ecosystems. So I guess wherever they walk or they destroy, they leave a radiation, which brings plant life back or different plant life back, I guess.
So like it's basically saying so um so it's like they're gods of destruction, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
So shout out to Al Ewing's Immortal Hulk. So one of the key story plots of that is like when Hulk meets God in the story, the one above all, God's like Hulk's like, why Hulk suffer? And the one above all says, well, you are my right hand, but in your right hand is destruction, and in your left hand is creation. So as you can destroy, you can also create. So like in
Yeah,
these,
I get it.
you got to read that. That's okay. So basically saying that while these titans, like titans of Greek mythology, they could destroy things, of course, but each titan had its purpose of what it could add to the world and creation.
Yeah.
Kronos was time, and Gaia was the earth itself. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of like what it's saying. Like that.
Yeah, I get it now.
Yeah.
So after all that, Emma eventually awakens Rodan in Mexico, and
Who's Rodan?
Rodan is basically a fictional monster that resembles like a pterodactyl type creature, I would say.
Like the Pink Ranger? Pterodactyl?
Yes, I believe, but not exactly.
I would say more of like a dragon, no?
Dragon?
It's like
I mean,
a
it looks
fire
like
pterodactyl.
a pterodactyl, yeah, but it
Pterodactyl.
merges
Yeah, it
with
has. Yeah,
like a
and
phoenix.
yeah,
There it
there
is.
you go.
There it is.
Phoenix. Yep.
Okay, so Jean Grey. So there was a rumor that Millie Bobby Brown would play Jean Grey in a future X-Men thing. So is
Oh,
this the
really?
Phoenix Force trying to get her?
Probably.
Oh well, he never stated that Millie Bobby Brown is the daughter of Vera Farmiga
Oh, yeah, that's right.
and Kyle Chandler. They're all in this one.
We
so
all make
yes.
mistakes. We all miss things. I miss things. That's why I have you guys to catch it.
Yep.
Steve can miss stuff
So
sometimes.
the Pink Power Ranger or Dragon
There he is. There it is.
emerges from its volcano monarch prison and creates havoc, destroys most of the town. So while he's doing that, the Monarch team tries to lure it towards Monster Zero, which is on its way. And after
So what can Monster Zero do?
he basically creates hurricane around him.
What? What does he look like?
I
Tell me
said that
more.
already. He's a three-headed monster, basically a hydra.
I just wanted to hear it again. What are his powers?
Electric, lightning.
Woogie 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 woogie.
Yeah.
It's electric. Woogie woogie woogie.
He does the electric slide and
Right.
And he could
hits
shoot
people.
lightning from his fingertips.
Mhm.
He DJs weddings.
Yeah.
DJ's wings. DJ Zero.
And like in the Hydra in Marvel, when like they say, when one head gets cut, another rises. And when the heads get cut off, they regrow another head, basically.
So, because King Ghidorah rocked onto Electric Avenue
Yes.
and then took it higher.
Yep. I don't know.
Okay,
the rest
back
of
to you with the weather of Hercules.
So they tried to lead Rodan to Monster Zero, which they end up doing, and Monster Zero basically whoops his ass, whoops him. And then Godzilla ambushes Monster Zero, severing his left head. During the fight, the U.S. military launches a prototype weapon called the Oxygen Destroyer, seemingly killing Godzilla, unaffected.
Throwback to Godzilla 1.
Yep. Which they would use again in Godzilla -1. Right? That's how they defeat Godzilla in that one too, with oxygen thing.
Is it? I thought they sunk him.
Oh, was it that?
Well, they sunk him, and then didn't they have to deploy him to like raise him up? Well,
Yeah, they were
spoilers for
trying to do it
both.
really fast.
Yeah, but did that kill him? I thought they used something else. I thought that didn't work.
Well,
It's like the Freon, right, or something like that, to freezes him. Something.
Yeah,
it was really,
I
it
don't
was
know.
really cool.
Okay, so they use this seeming killing Godzilla. It doesn't affect Monster Zero, and he goes to the volcano where Rodan lands and basically bows to the king, and he gets his name, King Ghidorah.
Acknowledges Ghidorah as a tribal chief.
Meanwhile, his head is growing back.
Yes.
So, Smith's rolling sword says that he's gotten what he wished for. A heartbroken Madison disowns Emma and eventually steals the orca and takes it back to Boston. And they find out that King Ghidorah is actually an alien and not something that has come from the Hollow Earth. And came here
I
basically.
think that will come into play in the future. That Ghidorah was an alien.
Oh yeah.
I think it will.
Yeah, I think so too. That he was basically here to destroy and terraform the earth for itself. So a post-pupation Mothra flies to Monarch's Bermuda base to communicate with Godzilla, who is recuperating in an ancient underwater city in the Hollow Earth. I didn't think it was in the Hollow Earth. I thought it was just below. Oh, that's okay. Never mind. Sorry.
Okay, so correct me if I'm wrong, guys. Where Godzilla is sleeping there, like, isn't there statues of Godzilla there? Like, it's kind of like
Outside,
this
they
huge
look like
temple,
it.
ain't it? Isn't there statues of Godzilla there?
There's statues, but I don't know if they actually like. You kind of can't tell, but they do look like mini Godzillas were there. Because at first I thought it was maybe like Atlantis or something he was resting in.
Like it
But
was his ancestral
temple.
Yeah.
So it's like his home, right?
Basically,
like his main home. Like Godzilla's part of the home.
Or like he's
Maybe?
like a temple. Maybe is where the people at one time worshipped him. Kind of like
enough.
Atlantis.
Fair enough.
Or something like that. But
so he's laying there and he's dead.
Basically, he's laying there dying. I don't think he's dead. And Mothra comes in and shines a light, basically showing them where Godzilla is and trying to communicate him with. So they decide to bring the warheads they had in a sub and take it down to Godzilla, where they end up hitting, which I now remember, one of the portals, which sends the submarine to Hollow Earth. And they figure out somebody's got to sacrifice themselves to set this bomb off. So Shirazawa basically says, "It's me, I'm going," and takes the warhead into the temple where it's this radiation galore, and basically just wants to go and pet him. Tell him he was a nice dog.
Yes.
And the nuke goes off, which recharges Godzilla to come back and end up taking on King Ghidorah. So back to where Madison overhears his mother's plan to lure Ghidorah to Boston, and the daughter steals the orca and implements the plan herself, arriving at Fenway Park and turning on the signal. When it tracks them. Meanwhile, every single Titan or Kaiju or whatever is coming to that, or is going to King Ghidorah. And then when the signal goes off, they're all attracted and coming to Boston. So Ghidorah ends up coming there. Godzilla meets him there. They engage in a big battle. And as he's going through, Godzilla's radiation is this increasing. And as he's walking, everything's melting. And
He's supercharged.
which ends up killing, I believe, the mother. She stays behind or something, and she ends up dying. And basically, Godzilla creates a thermonuclear explosion. But in the meantime, Mothra arrives, helps Godzilla by was intercepted by Rodan. She defeats him, but is injured in the process.
She stabs him through the freaking chest.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
And then while Godzilla is fighting Ghidorah overpowers Godzilla, but Mothra sacrifices herself and transfers her energy to Godzilla. Or wait.
Yeah.
Godzilla and Mothra's energy. Oh,
they
so
fuse.
Ghidorah.
Fuse.
Yeah, they fuse, and Ghidorah tries to extract all that. And Ghidorah is attempting to suck out all that energy. And just Godzilla, with his newly empowered state, vaporizes them, kills them, along with Emma, Rodan, and Rodan and the other Titans converge on Godzilla, bow, and he's the new king of the monsters. But during the ending credits, news clippings and Monarch public flash show that the Titans are now healing the planet. A suspected second Mothra egg has been discovered, and some Titans are converging on Skull Island. Ancient cave paintings of Godzilla and Kong-like Titans locked in battle are shown. In a post-credit scene, Jonah and his forces purchase Ghidorah's previously severed head in Mexico, which leads into Godzilla vs. Kong. You see what happens with that.
Okay, so I want to ask you guys. So this King of Monsters is like the lowest voted of the movies, and it made the least. I think it was kind of a badass movie.
I
Like
thought that.
it had all the classic monsters in it. I mean, you had Rodan in it a little bit. You had King Ghidorah, one of the greatest King Kong villains there is. Like Mothra, and each one of the monsters has a specific set of skills.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and they had the specific powers and things that they could do that the other one couldn't. So like, I don't get it. And the human story in this one I felt was a little bit better than in 2014's Godzilla. Like this one, you know, Kyle Chandler's, you know, and Vera Farmiga, their child died in the Godzilla attack in 2014. So they lost one kid, and that's what split them apart. So I don't know if we mentioned that. So
Yeah.
and Millie Bobby Brown is their surviving daughter. So it's like these parents and what's best conflicting and stuff. It's a little bit better of a story, a little bit, because
Yeah.
but I don't know, like we'll get to we'll get to the rankings in tomorrow's podcast when we finish it up. But what what do you guys feel is better? Do you feel this one's better, or you feel Godzilla's better, or should we just save that for tomorrow?
You
Okay,
know,
let's save it for well.
I just had King of the Monsters on right now,
Yeah,
and it's I remember seeing it in the theater. Well, I think I saw it at the drive-in, but I remember seeing it, and just it's kind of forgettable. Like the monster fights are the only good part, I think. Like I understand what you're saying. The human element is a better story, but I just feel like the humans just interject themselves too much into the story. So it feels a bit
okay.
incoherent, maybe. Versus, the Godzilla one, you're like following like one or two characters, and plus it's that Jaws thing where you don't see Godzilla as much, and then when you finally do, it's like, okay, but we're already invested in this storyline with this character of quick kick ass and him trying to get back to his family. So I don't know. Maybe that's just my opinion, but obviously
No,
the Monsterverse movies get better. They go up from here, I think.
they do.
I think.
Oh yeah, definitely.
They do go up. They do. Um, I think we'll dwell a little bit in more in our rankings here, but so everybody, that is the MonsterVerse timeline, building up to Godzilla and Kong finally coming together in Godzilla versus Kong, which we'll cover in tomorrow's episode that we drop. So, and that will be the final gravely amusing episode before the big break that we're going to take, because April is a huge month, very busy month for me, as I'll be taking some vacation with my wife, getting some rest, but also the company I work for is getting bought out right before my vacation, so all this crap's going on. So I need to focus on some other stuff. But Finch and I, in the month of May, are going to be working on the other podcast we have, was simply titled Bryan the Guys, where we talk about superheroes and nostalgia and other topics, but mainly superheroes. We have a lot of fun there. And we'll be focusing big time on the X-Men.
Da-na-na-na-na-na.
As we lead to Deadpool and Wolverine. So if you like this podcast and you want more Gravely Amusing, or to check out Bryan the Guys and superheroes, you can find us on Gravely Amusing on X, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. You can find Bryan the Guys at Bryan the Guys on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. And if you want to find me as I discuss other stuff, you can find me on X, TikTok, Threads, and Insta as the Man Shout of Steel. Thank you guys for joining me. I hope you had as much fun as I did. And thank you, listeners. I hope this podcast thrilled you. I hope it shocked you. And if nothing else, I hope it left you greatly amused.